that most people that get into this industry have when it comes to pricing?
Not understanding their cost.
So can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Well, there's a couple different ways to look at it. There's the home body that's doing the crafty thing. So they're working out of their spare bedroom, and they don't understand that they have costs because they're working in their house.
Yeah.
So they don't associate their rent payment or their mortgage payment. And, you can break it down to a tax thing where, what is it, 15% of your homestead?
Something like that.
Something like that. Say it with stitches. Good, how are you?
So the thing we have to realize is that this is a live shop. So we're going to take calls and customers will walk in. But that's sort of the cool thing about this show is that we get to present it all as it's actually happening. What you were saying?
They were trying to sell me digitizing.
Oh, yeah. And
I
then
connected
calls
him
like
with the
that.
person that's in charge with the embroidery department by hanging up on them.
Yeah, let me put you in contact with the guy in charge of that. It's like,
And now they're going to call me back.
yeah, it's like, well, there's nobody there. Tricks of the trade. So what ends up happening a lot of times okay, so let's say that it's not someone who's just working out of their house, not just a hobbyist, because in that case, they can easily just be like, well, let me just shut down the business because I'm just doing this as a hobby.
And that's the part two, is the person that's just now starting a business. They don't know a real understanding of the value they provide versus the value somebody else is providing. Mm-hmm. So you start getting into a space of, well, how much is my competition paying? Mm-hmm. And now my customers are saying, oh, well, the guy down the street charges X amount of dollars. So now I'm trying to base my price off of them. But that operation is completely different from my operation. They have different costs. They do things differently.
So their overhead may be like less.
Say my rent's $800. Their rent is $600. Mm-hmm. I wish my rent was $600.
Yeah.
But the prices are going to be different because they have different overheads to pool. Mm-hmm. The way they run their machines is going to be different. Some people run their machines at max speed, which is not recommended by anybody.
You mean all the time?
But people do that.
Yeah.
Like these machines can go up to 1,200 stitches per minute. But you start doing that and your quality goes right out the door. Mm-hmm. And while the machines may be sewing faster, you may have more thread breaks to slow you down and all that.
Yeah. So economically, it doesn't make that much sense. It seems like you're going faster, but really you're just...
Well, you're going to sit there trying to rethread needles more than...
actually produce.
Right.
Yeah.
So like my machines, I'd stick between 650 and 750.
Yeah.
Some of that's because they are a little bit older.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, and most of that, is because I'm concerned in how everything is sewing out and the quality that they're sewing out, and that the fabric's not just bouncing all over the place. And
what did that sound like again?
phones are ringing all over the place.
What did that... Is that how fabric sounds? That sounds like something else.
A new form of ASMR.
Right.
Clapping.
And that's going to get picked up by the mic, which is awesome.
That just blew out.
So then what happens? So they try to run their business for however long, doing it that way, and then what ends up happening a lot of times?
Well, like Stitching Waves, and I have talked about several times about these people who underprice their work. Is they last about maybe a year, if they can last that long. Sometimes they last 2 years, and then they close up their doors and they disappear.
Yeah.
And then we get new clients that say, yeah, I was working with this guy, and then he disappeared.
That does suck. That sucks.
Like I've got one client who, when he came to me, he said he's gone through 5 different embroidery businesses, and every single one
Went under.
went under. Like he'd show up to their door, and the door would be closed.
Yeah. So in a way, like actually paying attention to your costs and the amount that you charge, even if it is a higher premium, is kind of respectful of the client, because then if you're still in business and they like you, at least it's a guarantee you might actually be around for a little bit longer than a year.
Well, and I've got a lot of clients that they come to me because they like the way I put the jobs together.
Yeah.
And the thought of me closing, I feel would disappoint them.
Yeah.
So
really it's in like your best interest.
to price
Accordingly to your needs.
And I got bills to pay.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think
at the end of the day, I have to cover my bills.
well, that's hard. You know, I mean, I know this because I just in the past year really started to pay attention to this. For most people, they want to go on competition. And I think that's because, you know, most people go to like a let's say like an Ace Hardware. And they can buy a hammer there for a certain price, but if they go to Walmart, they can get that same hammer for probably a hell of a lot cheaper. So they think that that's the way to go to get the most business, is probably to go cheaper, and they think that's going to work out. But they don't understand that now they're not really paying attention to what it costs to run their business. And they have business coming in, but they're actually bleeding out a lot of money in the process. So how'd you end up figuring that out? Or, did it just make sense? Was it an intuitive thing?
Some degree was just business knowledge that I've had from running businesses.
Yeah.
Like hotels and restaurants, and going to college and learning equations of how you have to price things. Like
Yeah.
most commonly with restaurants. So you have a menu item, and your eggs cost this, your bacon costs this, your bread costs this, your butter costs this. And then knowing how much of that cost is going into the meal that you're preparing.
Mm-hmm. So that's just the cost of production alone.
Right.
Yeah.
But then knowing that you've also have the difference between fixed costs and variable costs, and how to factor all that in. And that's why I'm excited about this year being the first year that
You're profitable?
this business has actually been by itself instead of having a couple other businesses to factor into it. Because now I can really gauge how much variable costs adjust depending on business.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, being an Excel nut, and just knowing how to play with equations and all that, like I was able to build a worksheet that said, all right, these are all my costs for the year.
Yeah.
Break that down into costs for the month, the week, the day, the hour, and the minute.
Yeah.
So that way I know how much cost I have in every minute that my business is running.
Yeah.
And then saying, all right, this is how much I need to make to break even. Break-even point is very important to understand in any business, because that is the amount of money you need to make in order to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And then knowing above that how much money I want to make to keep my business profitable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can absolutely.
But pricing things still doesn't create the business.
No.
Pricing things is just purely understanding how much money you need to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like most people don't see that. Like if again, going back to that whole hammer analogy, it's like they just think, well, if Costco or Walmart or Target prices this same hammer at this price, then I should try to undercut that. Without really knowing that, just for you to even buy a certain number of units for that particular hammer is probably going to cost you even more than what any of those bigger stores are doing, because they just have the volume to support it. And I like, like, it's funny that you say a really good point is that you are an Excel nut. Most people that get into business are romantic about it. They don't think about Excel because they just think it's a pain in the ass. But in order for you to survive, you have to pay attention to the fact that that is a major part of the business. And I mean, like right now, I'm doing I guess you could say the real hands-on, less romantic stuff. But I mean, this is the physically demanding creative stuff that really gets from the idea and conception to the physical, like, deliverable. And that's cool, but you can't just price on the deliverable alone.
No.
And like,
and that's getting into the value-based pricing.
Yeah.
I get these people that come in with washcloths that they bought at Walmart for
nothing.
What, $2
like
a washcloth?
Yeah.
And then
$1.94.
So they give me a couple washcloths to put a monogram on, and to them they just see it as something small and simple.
Yeah.
But to me, it's one, the amount of time that I have to put in just to run off 2 washcloths.
Yeah.
But 2, I am giving you something that you want, that is exclusive to you, that you're not going to be able to just pick up at Walmart. So there's another value in that.
Yeah.
If this is what you want, whether it's a monogram, a logo, anything, you can't just go into Walmart and say, oh, I want a shirt with my company logo on it.
Yeah.
So we're putting a whole nother value on top of this item that you may have spent $2 on. And yes, that value is, with me, comes with the price of $25 for one item.
Yeah.
But I'm also putting in 40 minutes of time just on production side alone.
So if we're talking to like someone who's aspiring to start their own shop, and you're talking about pricing, how would you break down pricing for them, let's say for a t-shirt?
Well, it goes beyond the t-shirt. Before you even touch the shirt, you need to know the fixed costs of, this is my rent payment, this is how much electricity is going to be, this is how much my phone bill or internet bill is going to be. This is how much I'm going to pay myself. That's the other important part is if you're not paying yourself,
you're not making a living.
You need to go find another job.
Because you're just paying for the parts and pieces to actually create the deliverable and nothing more.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And then once you have those fixed costs, and just like electricity is generally considered a variable cost, but now through the powers of budget billing, FPL has figured out, all right, well, your average usage of electricity is this, we can spread it out so that you're only paying $150 a month. Sometimes it goes up a little bit, sometimes it goes down a little bit, but you're able to budget for that cost.
Got it. So what you're saying is base pricing according to your fixed or overhead costs.
I'm saying you have to know what your overhead cost is before you can go to that next
even start
step.
pricing that shirt out.
Because the price of a shirt is all going to be in the transaction.
Well, I mean, you look at a shirt at bulk and you're like, oh, it's $1 a shirt, like $3 a shirt. And you think,
whether
oh, wow.
I'm ordering 1 shirt or 100 shirts, every shirt costs me the same price.
Yeah.
There is no difference based on how many shirts I'm ordering.
Yeah.
But so many people out there have this idea in their head that, oh, the more I buy, the cheaper it is.
Yeah.
But that's not because of the shirt, that's because of the work. The embroidery is what brings that price down the more items you do it. The other side of that is the markup. You know, a $50 Nike Polo has a much higher markup than a $10 hat.
Yeah.
So, you know, on that item, you have more wiggle room, but you still need to make sure that you're covering the costs that you need to cover in pricing for a profit.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's on the
And there's
that's on the creative side.
yeah, and there's a multitude of ways to price an object based on, you know, whether you're doing materials plus labor or just, you know, keystoning the item and marking it up 100%.
Yeah.
Or
But the simplest way to put it is that it goes beyond just what you're as a just thinking like a beginner.
at the very beginning, you have to understand.
You have
what
to
your
understand
costs
like
are.
the costs, yeah. Cause
And even if it's your time, how much is your time worth to you?
yeah, yeah. Even as a person starting out, for like I said, for me, it was like I would just look at the cost of the sweater and go, oh, like that's it, and then I don't think about the cost to actually produce it because I'm not paying attention to how much thread is being used, how much electricity is being used, how long it's taking to actually to digitize the design itself. So it's really paying attention to the overhead costs associated to not just that. And then that's not even taking into consideration how much money you're actually going to make on top of that as profit. So I guess that kind of segues into, and you touched on this earlier, like even though sure you can go down to a new embroidery or screen printing operation down the street at somebody's house that you heard, you know, your best friend was telling you about, but
what if that's just some lady running a home use Bernina machine where it's just got one color going at a time?
yeah,
And then she's got to change that out.
yeah,
You know,
and it may be good, but
even in my mind, that would have more value in it because there's more work put into it. But those people are charging enough.
yeah,
So little.
yeah, nothing, and even though as a customer you think you're getting a bargain for all of that, really it's like what might happen down the road if you find that you actually like this person, but they're not paying attention to actually managing their business, and then in 6 months to a year that person's gone because they weren't paying attention to their business. And I think just to wrap, it applies on both ends, on the customer's end and also on the future shop owners end. Like you really do have to pay attention to the fact that costs aren't just defined by what you think is going to be made on top of the physical deliverable. It's going to be, you have to consider your own value, and there's a lot of things associated to that. It's the fixed cost of your own living circumstances, how much you want to pay yourself, taxes, utilities, and then you can start to get into considering what kind of money you'd like to make. And then you have to have a conscious shift in your mentality because that price may be higher than what you're normally comfortable with. And so it's going to be hard for you to present that to your customers, but in order for you to have a sustainable business, you have to become someone who's comfortable with that price point. And if you're going to compromise, then how are you going to compromise on price so that you actually still meet those numbers? And so it's a balancing game. But at the end of the day, as long as you keep in mind that if this is something you're passionate about, you need to put in the thought and effort into making sure that those things are paid attention to. I'm just learning. Zach's got a better handle on this. I'm still learning as far as Echelon goes. I mean, he's got a 6-figure business. And we joke about that number, but he legitimately does have a 6-figure business.
I mean, it's pretty awesome to say.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild to say, but it's true. It doesn't look like it when you're sitting in the shop. It's just like a humble-looking place. But this is what the makings of something greater can be. You know, it starts here. And it starts with the little things like that. And again, like, it's worth paying attention to.
It really started 4 years, 4 years ago,
Yeah.
trying to figure out a whole new trade and craft. You know, and some of the struggles that went along with that, and you know, changing my entire world from a hospitality mindset where the business was already coming to me. I just had to provide what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, there was upsells and suggestions and blah, 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 but it wasn't me going out and trying to find the business to bring in. It wasn't me knowing where to even start to look and talk to people other than my family and their friends.
Yeah, and online,
Yeah.
probably. So did we miss anything? Is that pretty solid? As far as talking about pricing a little bit, I'm sure there'll be more in the future.
Let's press those out.
Oh, okay.
Really, I want to start helping people figure out their own individual price instead of just saying,
Yeah.
how much should I price this out for?
So
Because at
it's-
the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anybody else says that you should price it out for, because nobody else knows
Okay.
your business better
So
than you.
I guess to say that Zach's kind of expanding into a more consultation space. If you happen to be in this industry, or if you just like in general and you're starting a business, paying attention to, because it applies to anything.
It really does.
Yeah,
Everybody's got cost.
yeah.
It's just understanding what those costs are, where they come from, how much they really are, and breaking them down into the time or the product.
So can they reach out to you on Facebook through this video, or YouTube, or wherever this happens to be?
All of the above.
All of the above. So all the Say It With Stitches YouTubes, Facebooks, Instagrams, all of
Email.
those things.
Email.
Yeah.
Email's
email.
a big one.
Yeah. And we'll put all that down in the
The
description.
phone is very time consuming and
Yeah.
difficult for me to do.
Yeah. And you can be more specific about drilling down into email and really giving them a structure. Maybe we can even like give them some sort of like,
Share my worksheet.
yeah, your worksheet. Just that's it.
And start plugging in what their costs are.
So there you go.
And there may even be costs that you don't realize exist, but they're there, especially for the home business.
Cool.
I mean, you can take a lot into consideration.
So that was episode 2. Definitely a little much improved. Peace.
Still might have been all over the place a little bit, but
Well, I'll try to wrangle it in.
yeah,
Wrangle.
wrangle. So I was looking